It's been a little while since we touched back down into the swampland, and with this new story that just came out this year, Swamp Thing Green Hell by Jeff Lemire himself, the master of horror comic books, or at least one of my all-time favorites. From classic stories such as Primordial, The Passageway, which I've gotten a lot of slack for, is I don't want this shit. Have yourself a fantastic day. And I do need to reread that. As well as The Killer Smile, and a whole slew of other very fantastic psychological stories. I couldn't be more excited to come across this book in my local comic book shop. And it's one that I think you guys are going to get excited for as well, as the ending blew my mind into utter pieces, shreds of tiny foliage and vines. And it's a very different premise at the same time. This actually deals with the end of the world, and the way they go about this is that the entire planet has now flooded. The green, the red, and the rot are all struggling with what they have left, as well as mankind. The only thing left is a mountaintop. This is the only piece of land stretched out across the entire planet. It's a little bit like Waterworld, but a little more tense and a little more heavy on the water part of that. And what this mainly deals with is a small group of people who can't really seem to get along. There's basically two factions that are constantly at heads way. One that wants to continue how the old world was, being kind to one another, just trying to survive, and the other one that just wants to take what it needs and what it wants. And throughout the story, we're going to meet many new characters, and it's going to be a little confusing up until the end. When I first read this, I was like, what are they doing to my precious Alec Holland? But as we get further in it, you will come to see what this is all about. Now, this all just starts with a man and his daughter sitting on a boat. His name is Donnie, and the girl's name is Ronnie. And as they're trying to catch things with this net that they have, it never really bears much fruit. The most they ever really catch is a bunch of junk, but this time, they really feel like they might have something. That's it, almost there. It's heavy. That's good. Maybe we got something. No, really heavy. Just a little more. We got something big, Dad. I could feel it. Yeah, you got something, alright. And as he's pulling up this net, you're just seeing a slew of trash. It's a bunch of cans and scrap metal and just pieces of plastic. And the one thing that he does find is a toothbrush. And while Ronnie is not very happy about this, her dad just kind of goes on to tell her that they're gonna make it no matter what, and they're just gonna continue to do what they've been doing this entire time. And right off the bat, we can tell that Donnie is a very respectable father, a great man, who never wants to let his daughter fear for starvation or anything of that kind. They end up keeping all this trash and they head back to the coastline, which to the side of them, they see this massive lighthouse. And they start having a little conversation about this. What do you think he eats? Never see him fishing? No chickens and goats? There's nothing out there. Old George says he only eats gulls, shoots them down and eats them whole. George lies through his last few teeth. Besides, we don't worry about him, do we? Don't talk about him, and we never go near the lighthouse. I know, you told me 1,000,000 times. Good. Maybe this time you'll remember. Don't worry, Dad. If he ever comes for us, I'll fight him off with my mighty blade. And she's holding up this golf club that they found, and she just basically has no idea what this is. And as she's doing this, Donnie lets her know that he's actually old enough to know what this used to be, and that he'll gladly tell her as soon as she's done with her chores. And after all this, they just continue their way back to the coastline, to the only home that they will ever know, to the only home that they could ever know. And you get this awesome piece of art of this giant mountainscape. I gotta say, through this entire book, the artwork is very good, very crisp, very clean, very detailed, and especially when it comes to the monsters themselves, or the embodiment of the green, the red, and the rot. But they get to shore and they get off the boat, and we are greeted to another character. This man is named Georgie, and he seems to have some semblance from maybe a couple other comics, but I could not find who this was. But apparently somebody in the end of this knows. But he's sitting on this dock and he just asks him if they caught anything. Just junk. Dad, can I go play with Will? And I'll do my chores after lunch, I promise. Go ahead. And he watches his daughter and this other child go, and Georgie and Donnie just kind of talk about how nice it is that these kids can still have a chance to be a kid. That they haven't reached a point where their kids are being pushed to adulthood in just a matter of seconds, trying to pillage and steal and kill anything that they can possibly get their hands on. But George sees this golf club that's in Donnie's hand, and he wants this so bad. Well, would you look at that? A sandwich. How much you want for it? What the hell are you gonna do with that? I almost got a full set. I'm a collector, Donald. You know that. Ha, you're something, alright. Tell you what, you can keep it. All I ask in return is you stop filling Ronnie's head with all those nonsense stories about the lighthouse. Just ghost stories, Donnie. Gotta keep the kiddies entertained. Whistle past graveyards, Georgie. The less we talk about that place, the better. We all agreed. And suddenly all the bells in town are going off. You see this man pulling the cord to make this happen, and out in the vast distance of this massive, complete ocean, you see a bunch of boats coming towards them. The whole town starts to scramble out around them. Everybody's in a panic, and Ronnie comes back, and she tells her dad about what is happening. Dad, they're coming! Go home now. But Dad! Now, Veronica, and stay inside, no matter what happens. You should go inside too, Georgie. Fuck that, I'm not scared of these bastards. You should be. And as Donnie says this, you see this blonde-haired man and a bunch of goons right behind him, holding guns and all sorts of different weapons and looking very, very menacing. And this is the faction of people that just kind of takes whatever they want. They do have some sort of agreement, but they're not really holding up to this deal. It's not the end of the month yet. Well, good morning to you too, Donald. I said it's not the end of the month yet. We had an agreement. No, you people made the agreement. We just let you go on thinking that your little rules still mean something. You can't do this! We need to eat! And you start seeing all these goons around him taking all the chickens, any food, any materials that they could possibly need for themselves. And the blonde-haired man smashes his face into Donald's face, breaking his nose. Or at least sending a spew of blood out of this man's nose. And he continues to punch and kick Donnie right in his stomach, all over his body really, as his goons are holding him back. And he just starts going on the spiel. You had your chance to join us, Donald, but you decided to stay here and pretend the old world still exists. It doesn't. It's all gone, and in a few more years this mountaintop will be underwater too. Choice is yours, Donnie. And suddenly you're seeing Ronnie approach. Her eyes are extremely wide as she's seeing Donald being beaten by all these different men, and she doesn't really know what to do. And suddenly the blonde-haired man does notice this, and he uses this to his advantage just to piss Donald off just a little bit more. You going to teach your little girl how to stay here and die slowly, or are you going to teach her what it really means to be a survivor? Don't you dare talk about my daughter. You don't know anything about real survival, about keeping somebody you love alive. That what you think you're doing here? Tell me, were you keeping the people you love safe when that little girl's mama died? My sister knew that this was all hopeless. Sarah couldn't bear to see you both drown up here. That's why she killed herself. You're already dead too, Donnie. You just don't know it yet. And this man and all the people around him proceed to grab the rest of the materials that they need, and they eventually, this is something that this little town has been dealing with for a long time, is just these people coming in and just taking all their supplies and constantly having to find ways to feed their children. But as you see all these people leaving, we cut to this little dock where you see this dead seagull sitting there, and this is where things start to pick up, where we get to see the rot, the green, and the red all talking amongst each other. More death. More to eat. Yum yum. The flesh is weak now. The flesh is fading. When it is gone, you will go hungry too. All of us are weakened, but still much life below the water. Below, not enough. Not the balance. Need more rot. More decay. Above and below. This is the way. And with this little sentence, you'd almost think that was Ectragon speaking. He doesn't really rhyme through a lot of this, but it just kind of caught me off guard every time I hear a rhyme in one of these comic books. It's just a little bit weird. But now the red comes into the conversation, and you're just seeing the seagull decay more and more as it's falling down underneath the ground and completely decaying and being eaten alive by both the green, the red, and the rot. Yes, rotten things speak truth. Below is not enough. Below is the unnatural way. None of us can survive only below in the wet. Still much land and much sky out there. But that land and that sky is too hot for life. Scorched, burning, chemical sky and earth. Chemical decay not natural, not yum yum. But their machines are gone. The world will come back, and the hot places will return. We cannot wait. We will all die before this happens. Must wipe clean. Must start fresh now. And after this, you get to see the physical embodiments of all these different things, with the rot being these weird heads floating in the water, the red just being these weird fleshy creatures that just look so incredibly cool and terrifying at the same time. They look like they're made out of the butts of earwigs, with the torso of a centipede, with the fleshy substance of an animal. But it's very interesting to see all these people working together. Cleansed, yes. Death we will feed, but the rot cannot act alone. The rot serves the red, the rot serves the green, and the red cannot turn on its own blood. The red cannot destroy humankind. So it falls to us, it falls to the green to purge the flesh. You are unencumbered. Once humanity is gone, the green can thrive, and the red will begin again, with simpler vessels, more easily controlled. But just as yum-yum when they decay. Very well, we accept this task, fellow parliaments. Humanity's arrogance and autonomy has long threatened all. They must be purged. And you see something awakening in all these weeds underwater, and I thought it was just such a cool idea to see these three working together. Although I've never seen the green act like this before, I've really only seen Alan Moore's first volume of Swamp Thing, where they seem to actually care about every living creature. They need them to create the carbon dioxide that they live on, to create the oxygen that they need to expel. But after this, we're just cutting back to the shack with Donnie and Ronnie sitting here. Ronnie is just kind of bandaging up his nose, and Donnie is telling her how much he needs her to stay in the house whenever he says so. How he needs to be the protector, and that she needs to stop worrying about him and just do as she's told. Suddenly, Donnie gets up, he's about to leave to go to this town meeting, and Ronnie is concerned that what this man said, the man who beat her dad up, was telling the truth about her mother. And Donnie doesn't necessarily handle this in the best way. He just tells her to go to bed and that they'll talk about this in the morning. This kind of just seems like a very heavy subject to just leave on a cliffhanger to me. He ends up going to this meeting, and we are greeted to a couple more characters. This bald-headed gentleman that is very angry, along with George and the rest of the townspeople, and they're talking about what they need to do about these other factions. If we don't do something now, it's only a matter of time. They'll wipe us out, take everything, and what would you have us do, Peter? We take the fight to them. If we resort to violence, we're no better than them. We need to teach our children a better way. That better way is going to get us all killed. You sound just like them. We've barely any weapons. We go after them and they'll just wipe us out, and that'll be the end of it. Oh, and what do you suggest, Georgie? The lighthouse. The thing that nobody wants to hear. We keep hearing about this lighthouse and a man that lives up there that nobody wants to talk to. And throughout this whole thing, it just kind of builds suspense for what is lying up there and whether or not we'll actually be able to see this. Are you mad? He's worse than any of those goddamn pirates. We leave him alone. He leaves us alone. Better that way. Enough goddamn debate. We've been doing this since we arrived here, and every year the water gets higher and higher, and every year they take more and more. We have no choice. We have to survive. We are all that is left. You're right, and there's only one way to do that. They've left us no choice. We all know what way this is heading. We all know what has to be done. Unlike you, Donald, I'm tired of being the victim. And after this meeting happens and the bald man leaves, everybody is incredibly angry, and we cut to this pier out in the ocean, and this is actually where the other faction kind of lives. You're seeing the blonde man standing there with this lady, and you can tell something is bothering him very intensely. She asks him what's wrong, and he says nothing and that he's just tired, and she just kindly says, why don't I try to alleviate you of this? And as they go closer and they come in for a kiss, you see this gunshot going off, and this woman is shot right in her back. Blood is pouring out, and after all this is just a slew of chaos. You're seeing all these people arrive, stabbing all these other crew members in the back. People are being shot and slaughtered, and nobody really knows what's going on. This blonde-haired man grabs his gun out, and he starts pointing into the crowd, looking for any enemy that he possibly can. When, out of nowhere, this bald-headed man comes up from behind and stabs him directly in the jugular, and he says, I got you, asshole. And this man is finally dead. He just drops him into the ocean, and from here you're just seeing this blonde-haired man's body descend deeper and deeper into the water. Blood's coming out, and once again we are greeted to the speech of the rot, the green, and the red. Blood drains. Soon it decays. Unless no decay. Not yet. This is ours. And as all these people are just mindlessly killing each other, you're seeing this blonde-haired man's body being enveloped by seaweed and all sorts of different plants. You're seeing his eyeball open back up, and the green starts to talk again. This one is ripe. The green will free him to become what he has always needed to be. To become our instrument. And you start seeing these vines coming out of the water up to the top of this pier, and people are suddenly starting to be ripped in half. You're seeing their skulls torn into two. You're seeing these vines basically go up their spines and out their mouths. It's incredibly gory. This blonde man's been slashed in the back of the knee, and he is just kind of laying on the ground when suddenly you see this green hand emerging onto the dock, and he looks absolutely terrified. He will become our Swamp Thing. And you see this giant creature emerging, and right here I was extremely confused on what's going on. I was like, are they really going to turn Alec Holland into this complete monster? But luckily this isn't exactly the case. This blonde-haired man who's been stealing from this other faction this entire time has been turned into a vessel of the green, the red, and the rot. And what a cool name that is to say all three of them together. Wouldn't you agree? But this monster is done so incredibly well. His artwork is absolutely fantastic. You see all the flora, all the vegetation coming off of him, and he's just got all these different tendrils coming off him. It's by far the evilest looking Swamp Thing that I've ever seen. Once again, you're seeing heads being torn off, you're seeing bodies be dismembered, and nobody knows how to stop this. But after all this, we cut back to Donnie's shed with Ronnie sitting there. She bolts up from sleep, and she's had a terrible nightmare. She runs outside to tell her dad, and Donnie's just kind of sitting there with a knife, and she asks him what this is for, and he says, nothing, don't worry. But as this is going on, they start hearing the town bells start ringing and pounding through the night air. They start hearing the screams of the town folk, and they get up and they run to the center of the city to see what is happening. Dad, what's going on? Mr. Baldy and some of the others, they did something very stupid. Listen to me. Do you remember what we said we'd do if anything ever went wrong? Yes, but I don't want to leave without you, Dad. Tell me what you're gonna do, Ronnie. Take the back trail around to the water. Take the boat and head north, and you'll meet me by sunrise. That's right. And if I don't come by sunrise, head north and never come back. That's it. Go now. And as Donnie runs off, everybody is just screaming their heads off around him. He starts walking his way down the town a little more as Ronnie heads to the boat, and he meets up with Georgie. He's holding the golf club in his hand, and he's ready to fight off anything that possibly comes his way. Stupid bastards did it, Donald. They killed all of us. You should go, Georgie. Stay inside. Not a chance. I'm not scared of those punks. Think they can come here and steal from us. About time they learned a lesson. And they both look off in the distance, and they see this new Swamp Thing emerging with a bunch of torn off heads and arms and its tendrils, and a bunch of dead people surrounding him. They're seeing intestines all over the floor, and they have no idea what to do about this. They both look so shocked, but suddenly this monster begins to talk to Donnie. No more! No more! And it throws one of its tendrils at Georgie's leg. He's being dragged away, but Donnie does still have his knife, and he begins to cut it. And as he's cutting and cutting, trying to get this man free, you see a gunshot blast this monster right in the side of its face. And behind them is a woman with glasses and a shotgun, and she just says, "Come on, you motherfucker!" And as she says this, the Swamp Thing emerges even closer, and you see one of its eyes dart out from its head into the spear shape, and it actually pierces through the back of her skull, plucking off her glasses and sending her eyeball flying. The fuck is that? I don't know. Just run, Georgie. Go! Come on, you bastard. And Donnie's sitting there trying to swipe at this creature. I don't know why he would do this. It's very clear that there's no way in hell that this man could possibly fight this creature after it just took a shotgun shell to the goddamn face. New Sarah. And it's made clear to Donald who this thing is, who it used to be, and as this monster's holding his very own knife to his eye, the monster says one more thing. Sarah knew. And now all the town people come in Donald's aid. They're starting to slash this thing, and he is actually made free as this creature is just kind of being sliced into different pieces. It's not really doing much, but it does free Donald at best. We got it! No, behind you! And as this creature's laying dead on the floor, you just see another one emerging from them. This thing is made out of plants, and it seems that it can embody as many as it possibly wants. And once again, this thing is crushing people's heads in. It's tearing their eyes out. It's tearing their arms off. It's using their legs as toothpicks, and we just get these awesome pin-up pages that looks so good. The art in this looks very terrifying. The look in these people's eyes is super tragic as you're watching their eyes basically just bulge out of their skulls. And I just gotta say that Lemire and the artist did such an incredible job at writing this. And once again, by the end of it, I think it's gonna get you incredibly pumped up for what's to come in the next 2 issues. No more! No more! And after all this carnage and chaos going on, we are greeted to Ronnie once again. This little girl is seeing all these dead bodies laying around her, and there's actually a bunch of flora and flowers growing out of their bodies quite instantly, when suddenly Georgie grabs her by the shoulder. This way! George, my dad! He'll be okay. Come on, gotta go. Are you coming with me? Heading north, Daddy said? Nothing there. Ain't nothing north. Only one man can help us now. We shouldn't be here, George. Dad said. No more time for ghost stories, Veronica. We are well past that. And they reach the bottom of this tower, and they open the door to the lighthouse, and what you see inside is a slew of scientific equipment, but alongside of the beakers and test tubes, you're also seeing some cigarette butts and some empty bottles of whiskey. And as you turn the page, you see none other than an old John Constantine sitting alone in his chair, smoking a cigarette, surrounded by tons of bottles of whiskey, just doing his John Constantine thing. Took you bloody well long enough. And what an opening sentence that is for this old guy. And an old guy he is. Ronnie is very underwhelmed by this, and she says it herself. She says, he's just an old man. And Constantine gets up, and he kind of starts adjusting his collar, and he just says, watch your tongue, love. Still got it when it counts, yeah. You alright then, George? Been better, John. You know him? Aye, old George and me go way back. Gotham 28, wasn't it, Georgie? Enough, you already know what's happening. Aye, I figured it was only a matter of time before some end-of-all-life scenario showed its fucking ugly head. Had my money on Apocalypse or some other worldly bullshit, though. Didn't think the parliaments would be this cheeky, but here we are. And I hope my English accent for John Constantine is okay. I just want to give him a little bit of depth because he's such a badass character. But they end up leaving the interior of the lighthouse and they step outside and we see the circle of stones out in the yard. He tells little Ronnie to go and fetch some scrap weeds, and this is where things are going to get so crazy and answer so many of our questions. Ronnie brings back the weeds and Constantine is ready to go. I'd stand back. And he holds up his hand, and you're seeing this blood circle coming around him. And as all this is going on, George is asking if it's going to be dangerous, and Constantine says yes. Likely to be. Not going to be very fucking happy about this, I reckon. You start seeing all these green tendrils coming from the ground, these green lights rising up from underneath, and a swirl of fire coming all around. And within the swirl, you see a set of orange eyes. No, not too happy at all. And it is none other than Alec Holland himself, the original Swamp Thing. And he is just incredibly pissed off, and he just yells, Constantine. Constantine! I was free! I was home! How dare you! How dare you! Sorry to interrupt the vacation, Alec, my boy, but we've got a problem. Seems you gotta save us from the green. And he pulls out a cigarette and he's just grinning so hard at Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing does not like Constantine. He pisses him off. He makes him so incredibly mad. And one question that I do have for all of you is I know some of you are well versed in Constantine and some of you are well versed in Swamp Thing. And I'm just wondering, could you tell me where in the comic book lore did the situation happen that made Swamp Thing so mad at Constantine? I see this in a bunch of different comics, more so in Batman the Damned, and I've wondered since then, and I would very much appreciate it. But as these two are just staring at each other, Swamp Thing holding him by his neck up in the air, this is the end of our humble tale. Now, I gotta say, I was incredibly stoked. I think the best thing about this is the fact that Jeff Lemire wrote it. When I seen this on the shelf, I was like, no freaking way does Jeff Lemire gonna step inside of a DC Black Label book once again. Well, actually, I've had this for a while. I got it at the same time I got Joker, The Killer Smile, and ended up reading this first, and I guess I just wasn't quite ready to make a video out of it. But now that I've read it several times, I was ready. So, what did you all think of that? What do you think of Swamp Thing? Are you excited for this new iteration of him? I couldn't be more excited for the second book to come out. It's gonna be a set of 3 issues. Now, one bad thing is that I know it's been pushed back a couple times, and there's a lot of people on the internet that think maybe it's even been secretly canceled, which I don't believe. I think Jeff Lemire is just an incredibly busy man. He writes so many different comic books, and I'm sure he just needed a little time or something of the sort. I'm almost positive it'll be out early, I think February 2023. I've had it ordered for the last couple months, and I could not be more excited. And if you did enjoy this, everybody, please go out and support this. Please go buy a copy for yourself. It's insanely cheap. This thing was $7 just for this cool oversized book, and I thought that was sweet, and I cannot wait for the hardcover collection to come out as soon as every issue's out. But yes, the end of our story, we get a new iteration of Swamp Thing, a new generation, we get a new world for him to play around in, we get to see the Rot, the Red, and the Green working together to basically genocide the human race, to create new species that are a little more easily containable and that possibly won't overpopulate, overpollute, and destroy the world as we know it. And I just thought that was such an interesting idea, and it's also incredibly cool to see their embodiments in all these different artworks. And yes, everybody, if you enjoyed, if you're new here, please like, comment, and subscribe. That would help me so incredibly much. And we'll meet you guys down in the comments to have a little chat about this or whatever y'all want to talk about. Maybe tell me what your favorite Swamp Thing arc is or your favorite John Constantine arc is. Jerry, I know you know a lot of good ones. I'm still working on trying to find some of the ones that you recommended me. I think I'm just going to end up having to get the entire Constantine omnibus, which is fine, even though I'm pretty sure it's like 1,000 pages or something like that. Very overwhelming, but something very nice for my collection. But yes, everybody, this has been Swamp Thing Green Hell Book 1. Stay tuned for the next one. I will get it as soon as it's out, obviously, because I pre-ordered it, and I will try and nail a video on that as quick as I possibly can. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for coming here every single time and giving me all these nice comments and talking to me. It has been so incredibly cool, and thank you for the wait, everybody. I did take a little bit of a break after the Halloween video just to chill out, and I will see you all on the next episode.